Namaste. I welcome you all in this 5 days lecture series organized by Educational Activity Resource Center of Jnana Prabodhini titled Enlightening Education. Indian tradition says that the personality of teacher or any person he's evolved or he's made up of 5 koshas or 5 sheets of personality. Taittiriya Upanishad mentions that a personality develops or is bound by 5 sheets, starting from Annamaya Kosh to Anandamaya Kosh. At Jnanaprabodhini, at our Gurukul, which is situated at Nigdi, it is a special experimental school where we are trying to design educational activities, educational curriculum, and evaluation system also based on the Panchakosh philosophy. And if we want to develop ourselves as Acharya, we have to think about our Panchakosh as a teacher. So, what is Panchakosh of a teacher? In this session, we will discuss about this. And today we have with us Madhuratai Lunkad to share her vision and her wisdom as she has worked in this Gurukul experiment from her initiation of her teacherhood. She has worked as a youth volunteer at Jnana Prabodhini's Nigdi campus, and at present she heads or she is principal of Jnana Prabodhini's English medium school, which is situated at Nigdi. Her main subjects are English and social science, and she is keen in experimenting in English language teaching and social science teaching. In month of January, she had presented in front of parliamentary committee what kind of reforms are we are expecting in history education. So she is working with students, and along with she is pursuing her PhD or doctoral research in educational technology. Her topic is flipped classroom. So from philosophical background to technological background, trying to explore different aspects in education. So I welcome her on behalf of all of us in this first lecture in this series. I welcome Madhuratai and I request her to share her thoughts and her experiences, how a teacher can develop his Panchakosh for a better teacherhoodship. Madhuratai.
Namaskar everyone present in today's meeting, and I extend a warm welcome to all of you for the wonderful lecture series that we are having for the next 5 years. It is always a great pleasure to talk to the people who belong to our fraternity, and all of us are teachers and very proudly so, and therefore the interaction which we are going to have in the next 5 years, personally I am looking forward to it very much. As Prashant sir said just now, the topic for my session today is Panchakosh, or the development of Panchakosh, the personality of a teacher. So often we discuss about personality development. The term personality development is used time and again in the field of education. But when we speak of personality development, more often than not, we are speaking about the personality of the students. And hardly ever do we think about our personality and how we, as the very key factors in the process of education, need to build our personality. So all over the world, the personality of a teacher has been described in different ways. The human personality has been defined by various psychologists or educationists using different terms and theories. But when we go deep into the Indian philosophy, and when we try to find different explanations for the human personality given by the Indian system of thought, we come to a beautiful idea which is called Panchakosh. What is Panchakosh? So as the term Kosh in in the Indian languages, in Hindi or in Marathi, suggests that it is a sheath, or it is like a cover or like a layer of personality. And it is assumed in this theory, it is proposed that the human personality is made up of 5 such sheaths or 5 such layers. And what are these layers? We need to understand step by step. As all of you can see in the figure, the first layer being the Annamaya Kosha, or the physical body that we have, that we all can see with our eyes, our body and all our physique. The second level of existence is said to be Pranamaya Kosh, which is called our vital body. What is Pranamaya Kosh? Prana, or the different kinds of breathing techniques which we use and how it affects our systems working inside our body. All the movement which is happening inside our body and how it is governed by our breath, that is the composition of Pranamaya Kosha. The third kosha in our personality is called Manomaya Kosh, or as all of you must have guessed it by now, it comprises of the mana, or the emotional aspect of the human personality. Our emotions and how we manage them and how we control them, everything comes under Manomaya Kosh. Vijnanamaya Kosh is the next level, which mainly deals with our intellect, the decisions that we make, the thoughts that we have, all the mental processing that we do a lot in our daily lives. And the innermost or the highest level of existence, the sheath of our personality, is called Anandamaya Kosha, which is in crude English terms, it is defined as blissful existence, or the experience of bliss, where we experience a different kind of happiness, a different level of happiness, where we expand our existence to higher levels and broader levels. So let us see one by one. When we talk of these 5 aspects of our personality, or these 5 sheets of our personality, what do they mean, and what implications do they have in our lives as teachers? The first of these is the Annamaya Kosh, or the health of a teacher. It is extremely important because it forms the basis of everything what we do. I don't even need to say this. We all know that a strong body makes up for a strong personality. As teachers, we have to do so many things which are mentioned on the slide. There are so many outdoor activities which we have to conduct, including trips and camps or different visits and group tasks and all such things. We have to also control the huge assemblies which we have in our school, where thousands of students might be in front of us, and we might be expected to address them or control them, direct them towards certain activities. We have to travel as teachers, and as we travel, we have to interact with different types of climate in different areas in the country, and drinking different sorts of water, eating different varieties of food. And as a teacher, it is expected that we should be able to stand tall through all these kinds of stress that we expose ourselves to. A very important factor which we have to do as a teacher in our day-to-day life is class control. So when I speak in the class, what is my body language? Do I stand smartly in front of my students, looking like a fit person? Or do I look like a dragged personality, barely matching up to the energy level required for that action? What is my volume in which I speak? What kind of voice control do I have? And of course, as a teacher, can I stand for long hours? Because even as we teach and as we engage students in different activities, we are expected to move around the classes, and we are expected to be standing all the time. So standing for a long hour also demands good health. Apart from this, there are activities like the annual day or the sports day in the school, where weeks of practice is involved. Now, since 1.5 years, unfortunately, none of us have had any experiences of this sort. But if we remember what we had in the previous years, all of you might recall that days and days of relentless practice without looking at the time exactly and just putting in as many hours of work as the quality demands, as the activity demands, or as a student's demand is what we have to do if we have to perform to a certain extent as a teacher. Apart from all our duties as a teacher, we also have some additional duties which the society expects from us, like the census duty or COVID surveys or polling duty. I've heard from many teachers that they travel extensively to conduct the census, and it might be scorching heat outside, or it might be severe rainfall. Like right now, the teachers of different schools who are on COVID duty in Maharashtra are experiencing sometimes even 14, 16 hours of work every day. So all this is extremely demanding on a personality, and it demands a very strong foundation of a personality as a teacher, and therefore we should have a very strong body, and that is what is Annamaya Kosha. So as teachers, what should we do to make our Annamaya Kosha strong? In a beautiful Sanskrit shlok, it is said that Yuktahara Viharasya, Yukta Cheshtasya Karmasu, Yukta Swapnavabodhasya, Yogo Bhavate Dukkhaha. So Yukta means regulated, well regulated. So if your food and your movement and all your work is well regulated, it is well controlled, and your swapna and avabodha means your sleep and your waking up times are regulated, then you will be happy, you will experience the real happiness in life. That is what this shlok from Gita promises us. And so true, all of us must have experienced this definitely, that the moment we start leading a well-regulated life, we experience moving towards more strength, more physical strength. And that is what we need as a teacher. So just as we tell our students, we need to look at 4 very important elements of our personality, that is diet, exercise, rest, and hygiene. And we have to have a self-regulated routine, which is very important to make this foundation of our personality strong enough to build upon it. As teachers, let us assume that we have had strong foundation of a good, very strong and agile body, great levels of fitness and energy. And then what would be the next thing that we need to concentrate on? That would be the Pranamaya Kosh. So in very crude terms, Pranamaya Kosh can be symbolized, so to say, by the word skills of a person. So Pranamaya Kosh basically depicts the different pranas that work in our body, and it is always seen that these pranas are expressed in the level of skill that a person has. So suppose if I sing very beautifully, or if I have the skill of fine sculpture, or if I have the skill of great oratory, then all these skills can develop in my personality only if I have good control on my breath. If you talk to any sports person also, they will also tell you this definitely, that up to a certain level, sports is all about physical strength. But after achieving a certain level of physical strength, it is the control on your breath which decides what kind of performance you will be exhibiting. That is Pranamaya Kosh. So having good Pranamaya Kosh is having fine motor skills and having good control and development of the finer muscles of your body. And that is what reflects in our skills. So as teachers, what are the skills that we require? Of course, the first one would be reading skill, reading very fast and reading pages and pages and pages. Nowadays, all of you must have experienced that students in our class are very, very well read because of the internet. They are very knowledgeable and they ask wonderful questions to us. And therefore, we always have to be on our toes. We always have to be reading a lot. We have to know what is the latest up-to-date knowledge, at least in our subject, and if possible, even more. So for that reason, we need to be able to read fast. We need to be able to catch up with the changing and expanding knowledge in our field. And for that, reading skill, extremely important. Also, we need to have good handwriting. because students generally emulate us teachers, and that is why the responsibility on our shoulders is much more. So how we write on the blackboard, is it beautifully positioned? Does the blackboard look clean and well designed, or does it look like clustered and haphazard when we write on the blackboard? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. And what happens when we check the notebooks or the answer papers of our students? Do we ourselves write in very shabby handwriting and give a remark to the students that they should write neatly? Because that is not going to happen. So of course it is expected from all the teachers that even as we check, there is a method to it. So how do we write our marks? How do we write the remarks to the students that we want to give? How do we place the tick marks on the answer paper? All these are minute things, but we are always under the microscope because our children are always looking at us, and they are picking up these small little details from our performance. So handwriting is a very important skill. Good writing basically is a very important skill that a teacher has to have. The third important skill, of course, is communication. And when we say communication here, we mean the one-to-one communication that we have with our students, with the parents of the students, with our co-teachers, and so on. So when we interact with a person, can we open a conversation comfortably? Can we welcome more and more people to talk to us? Can we engage people in skillful conversation? Can we drive the conversation or the communication to the points that we need to take it to? All these skills require good development of the Pranamaya Kosha and oratory skills. So when I stand in front of a class full of people, what is the way I throw my voice? Can I control the pitch of my voice? Can I control the tonality of my voice so that there is some modulation in my voice and it attracts the students? Or is it that all the long in my period, I'm speaking in a single tone and then it becomes very monotonous? Am I shouting all the time in my period, or is there some up and down in my own speech so that the attention of children is engaged? So oratory skill, another very important skill which we all need to have. And of course, the last one on the slide and very important one is planning and time management, because we have so many things to handle as teachers. And if we want to be on top of all the things that we are doing, then we need to have good planning. We need to have very good time management. And all this will come if we have a good development of our Pranamaya Kosh. So these are just some exemplary skills that teachers need to have. Of course, this list can be extended much more, but these are the basic skills which we must have as a teacher. They are special to our profession, and therefore we need to work on these. So in order to develop these skills, what is that we will do? Of course, the first thing which we need to do to develop our Pranamaya Kosh is yoga and pranayama. I'm a very staunch believer of yoga and pranayama, and we must always do it under the guidance of some guru or a good teacher. Pranayama tells us to regulate the breath more and more skillfully, and the yoga also leads to the regulation of breath, to the regulation of finer muscles in our body, and therefore to the development of Pranamaya Kosh. The practice of different skills and arts. Always a skilled teacher, a teacher who can perform or exhibit some skill with great level of mastery, excellence, is a point of attraction for the students. So if there's a teacher in the school who plays wonderful flute, then all the students definitely will gather around that teacher and ask that teacher to play the flute. If there's a teacher, suppose, who reads a lot of books and always narrates new stories and anecdotes from the different books that she has read, you'll definitely find students gathering around that teacher. And in order to reach that level that students look respectfully at us because of our skill, we need to have a lot of practice of all these skills and arts. So day in and day out, we need to devote some time. We need to invest some time to practice these skills, to practice the arts that we like, which we feel are the strengths of our personality. Of course, the third part is appreciation of art. So before we develop our skill ourselves, we need to understand what is skillful and what is not. We need to understand what level of skill is good and what level of skill is average and what level of skill is just basic. So to be able to make that distinction also, we need to engage more in skill practice. Listening is extremely important, because through listening we receive all the knowledge, and we can have examples, role models of skillful people in front of us through kirtan or pravachan, which is abundant in our country. Really good storytellers, really good orators. Now, because of the internet, so many doors have opened for us, because of which we can listen to the best teachers in the world and how they teach and what kind of teaching skills they have. So picking up a little by little from each person, we can develop upon it and build our own style as a teacher, build our own skills as a teacher. And of course, the last thing about planning skills or management is that the daily habit of planning our day, the daily habit of planning the tasks ahead of us, the daily habit of taking an overview of what all we have to do as a teacher, and where we have reached on that path, and where we have to travel in the next few days, the annual schedule of teaching. All this is very important, which will lead to the development of our Pranamaya Kosh. In all the Western theories of personality, you will find that Pranamaya Kosh is not mentioned. The aspect of the vital sheath of the personality is not taken into consideration. But in the Indian tradition, this is considered as extremely important. The Manomaya Kosh, which comes the next, talks about, in a short form, we can say that Manomaya Kosh means sensitivity. Being sensitive, being connected with our students. That is most important as a teacher, that we should feel an emotional connect with our students. If anything happens in the class, then we should be able to catch the vibe, the emotional vibe which the class is trying to give us as we enter the class. When we enter the class as a teacher, we must be able to understand if the children are enthusiastic today, or they're sad, or they're bored, or they're angry, or they're tired, or they've just had a quarrel, or what. And that can only happen if we open our mind to the vibes which the students are giving out at us. Not only that, but most of us, I'm sure, work as class teachers, and a class teacher is as good as a parent of every child. So do we pay attention to every single student in our class? And can we notice behavioral changes in the students? Can we notice changing stress levels? Can we notice increase in the enthusiasm of our students? Can we notice the positive and negative emotions that students are trying to express through their body language? So I remember a little anecdote about one of our teachers working in our school, and one day she came up to me in the staff room, and she was saying that she was a class teacher of 5th standard, and she was saying that there was a bunch of boys in her class who were having some fearsome experience probably, and she did not know what it was. But I asked her how did she gauge it, and I was really surprised when she said to me that she was taking rounds in the class, and whenever she went along the benches of these boys, she found that they were all sitting very quietly, as against every day that they are moving around and creating some kind of noise. So that minute observation and that extreme sensitivity of that teacher made her realize that something is wrong and we need to talk to these boys. And then when we called those 3-4 boys out, and then we tried to discuss with them, we found out that they were going through some very unpleasant experience which opened up in front of us. So this kind of connect with the students, that even if your facial expression changes, I can notice it because I'm your class teacher. That kind of connect we need to have with our students, and that is why our Manomaya Kosh has to be developed. Our sensitivity needs to be on high. Identify and manage our own emotions. Of course, as teachers, it is not that we only deal with the emotions of our students, but most importantly, we have to manage our own emotions so that we don't bring our family stress into the school, and we don't take our school stresses to our family as well. So how do we interact with our colleagues? How do we interact with our students? Can we put aside everything else and concentrate whenever we want to into our subject? Can we put aside all the small differences of opinion or minor quarrels which we have with our colleagues and still express cheerfulness of temperament? Can we still express a very fresh attitude whenever we deal with any activity in school, whenever we enter a class to teach? Do we have a bright smile on our faces? That is the question we should ask ourselves. And if the answer is yes, then it is an indicator that we have a very strong and well-developed Manomaya Kosh. Because stress is going to happen to everyone and unpleasant emotions are going to come in everybody's life. But how do we deal with them, and do we carry them on to our students and into our work or not, is what is called emotional management. So it's extremely important to identify first what I feel and then manage how I will or will not express what I feel. And this is where the Manomaya Kosh of our personality comes into picture. Adaptability while working in a group. So I've seen many teachers who are extremely enthusiastic about doing so many things, and they want to try out new things in classroom teaching. They want to try out new things in extracurricular activities. They want to have new kinds of field visits. They want to do some action research and this and that and that. But the moment you tell them to work in a group, then there is a little problem. So sometimes the teacher comes up to you and says that I'm completely ready to work on my own and I'll work much better and much faster if it is left only to me. But because I'm in a group, it's becoming very difficult. So please don't put me in a group. Allow me to work individually, alone. And this is not definitely which will take us to progress, because everywhere we see around in the world now, people are talking about teams, people are talking about collaboration. And that is going to be the future of mankind. So even as teachers, we should be able to work in groups. We have to exhibit in front of our students a good model of teamwork as teachers also. So can we adapt with different people? Is it that I can only work with a group of teachers of my school, or is it that I can be put into any group and I will just mold into that group and get set and work in the flow? Can I work as a leader in a certain group? Then can I work as a follower? Can I work as a colleague of the group members? Can I take up leadership whenever the time demands? How do I interact with the people in my group and how do I gel with them? If all this comes easily to you, then definitely your Manomaya Kosh is very strong and you should pat your back. And along with this, of course, the last thing which we must have as teachers is a feeling of strong belongingness towards the school. So when I come to school, do I look at my school as a workplace, or do I look at it as a place where I invest a lot of my emotions, where I invest a lot of my time? Do I look at it as my second home? And when I go back, do I have an eye on the watch every time that when will my working hours get over and I'll pick up my bag and rush home? Or do I linger around? Do I feel that I don't want to go today because something very interesting is happening and I want to be a part of it? I want to be a part of this surrounding. So that kind of an emotional bond, even with the space of the school, not only the space, not only the people, but even with the material in the school. Do we feel that the infrastructure in the school belongs to us? Do we feel that the furniture in the school belongs to us? Do we take care of the physical objects also in the school as if they are ours? And that is what will decide whether we are good teachers, sensitive teachers or not, and whether we have a strong Manomaya Kosh or not. So if we have to travel as teachers towards these indicators of Manomaya Kosh, then what can we do? So one very important thing which we have practiced in Prabodhini, in Jnana Prabodhini since decades now, is visiting the houses of students and also our co-teachers. So I'm sure many of you must have done it definitely some or the other time in your teaching career. But when you go to visit the house of a student, the kind of joy it gives that child is really just, it's difficult to express in words. That the teacher has come to my house and the warm welcome you get in the house, and then the interaction which we have with the family makes us understand the child even better. And if you have visited the house of the child, then the child is completely in your pocket. After that onwards, whenever you say anything in school, that child will be the first one to rush and obey you, because you have been a part of his world. You have shared some of his space also, and you have tried to understand him or her. You have taken one little extra step towards understanding him or her, and that will what mark us as special teachers in the mind of the student. Not only visiting our colleagues, not only visiting our students, but also visiting the houses of our colleagues. So as teachers, are we open to invite our colleagues to our own house? That is the first question we should ask ourselves, that do I invite my team of teachers to my place sometimes? And then do we easily go to each other's house, or do we just have a workplace relationship? Are we each other's friends? Do we freely exchange thoughts and emotions and concerns with each other? Or we just have a very strict formal workplace relationship? Because that will decide how sensitive you are as a person and how better you can work as a teacher. So along with visiting tons and tons of your students and your colleagues, the other important technique which is used in Jnana Prabodhini is Mauna Samvad. What is Mauna Samvad? Mauna Samvad is a kind of a silent dialogue, as a crude translation of the word will go. This is a dialogue with any inanimate object or any person who is not right now there in front of you. So you converse with someone, but you don't actually converse. You imagine that you're talking to that person or to that thing. And in your own mind, you imagine that that other person or thing is replying to you, is interacting with you. And you build up an imaginary conversation in your mind. And it is a great process which ends up making you more sensitive. It is like being in the place of that other person, or trying to experience, empathize with that other person, trying to fill her shoes or his shoes, and trying to imagine what they might be feeling, and then opening up your mind to more possibilities. So Mauna Samvad is a very good technique which we can use to develop our Manomaya Kosh, to expand our sensitivity. And of course, the most important or most powerful technique is music. So music and emotions are very closely related to each other, as we all know. At any time, if we want to evoke a certain emotion in our students, the best thing a teacher can do is play that kind of music, what emotion you want to have evoked in your students. So that is precisely the reason why group songs are sung in many schools, because group songs create an emotion of loyalty towards the group, team spirit, patriotism also, if you are singing patriotic songs, and all kinds of prayers which are sung in a group. They create emotions of humbleness, politeness, giving away or letting go towards a higher power, and gratitude. And all these are emotions which we want to build in our students. And that is why group songs and prayers, as teachers, we must have a good collection of group songs and prayers in our school, and we must have a regular practice of reciting them in formal settings and informal settings. So even in the break time, if our children, and most importantly, if our teachers go through the corridors of the school humming some of these songs and prayers, then it is an indication that we are moving towards better sensitivity. We are most probably going to have a stronger Manomaya Kosh in future. So this is about the third sheath of personality, which is the Manomaya Kosh, and then comes the fourth sheath of the human personality, that is Vijnanamaya Kosh. This is the thing which matters most to any teacher. because 70–80% of our job as a teacher is to train the intellect of the students. Whatever subjects we teach in the school, be it languages, be it social science, be it science, or anything else for that matter, all those subjects are meant to develop the intellectual abilities of our students. They are meant to help our students to understand better and to process information better and better. So as teachers, we have to have developed intellectual abilities, and then and only then can we develop the intellectual abilities of our students. What are the indicators of having a strong Vijnanamay Kosh? They are that we should be able to present our opinion in a certain discussion. Many times we find that there are many people around us who are plain receivers. They only receive everything what is going on around them, or they only give emotional responses. But can we analyze what is happening around us, whatever information is being put, and can we process that, and can we form our own opinion about it, and then can we express our opinion properly in well articulated format? That is the expression of a good Vijnanamay Kosh. Being able to present many references. Are we well read? Do we know any topic from different aspects in a well-rounded manner? Do we have a number of books that we have read regarding a certain topic? Can we present anything in all its subtleties along with all its different aspects? That is the question we should ask ourselves. Can we do experiments in our own teaching? So as teachers, we have to always do this, and I'm sure all of you must have experienced that so many new ideas spring in our mind as we teach in the class. And sometimes we note down those ideas, sometimes we do not. But do we take them a step further? Do we build an experiment out of it? Do we have the intellectual abilities required to build a serious experiment out of it and then conduct it in our own classes? So do we just have passing thoughts, or do we build on them, and do we have real concrete ideas about what to do differently in our own teaching? Do we have awareness about current affairs? I have experienced as a teacher myself that students love to ask us questions, and most probably the questions that students ask are about what is going on around them. So whatever they see, whatever they read in the newspapers, watch on the news channels, or whatever they listen to their parents talking to each other, they will ask questions about it to the teacher. And is the teacher well aware of all those things? As a teacher, we must know a little bit about something. It is very nicely put that we should be a jack of all trades and master of one. That is the expectation from all teachers. So nothing in the world should be like a closed door for us. There should be no topic in the world which is absolutely not for me. We should be open to receive knowledge of all streams and all disciplines, and we should know a little at least about everything, so that we can build conversation with all our students, and so that we can transfer to them a good knowledge about the contemporary events going on around in the world. Having that awareness and then building that awareness amongst our students is what is the indicator of good intellectual ability and a good Vijnanamay Kosh. Being able to find creative answers to resolve school level problems. So many times we have seen that there are teachers who grumble over little things in the school, like shortage of time is one thing I've seen. All teachers always complaining about. It's a very good sign that as teachers, we want to have more time with our children. But the real question is, what do we do when we fall short of time? Do we have any creative answers for this problem? There's another problem in front of us, that the strength of the class is huge, and we always feel that we are insufficient as a teacher to reach out to all the students who are there in our class. So what do we do about it? Do we have any creative solutions about it? Can we use technology in different creative ways in our classrooms in order to enhance the levels of learning in our class? So are we creative in our teaching? Because children really love that, and we must have that as an essential facet of a personality. A teacher who is creative, a teacher who is dynamic, keeps the energy levels high in the class, keeps the enthusiasm high in the class, and keeps the students also on their toes. And that is what we ultimately want. So am I an experimenter? Am I always on the go towards better and better teaching? Am I always trying to find new knowledge regarding my own subject? That is what we need to ask ourselves. And resourcefulness while doing projects or activities. So all of you must have experienced that children always come to us with a lot of doubts or problems. They want a certain solution, but as teachers, what do we do is very important here. Do we supply ready-made answers to our students, or do we direct them towards how to find the answers to their problems? So that is what distinguishes a good teacher from a great teacher or a very good teacher, I would say. So we should have a lot of resources. I should know at least a few dozen books from the library of my school, which can be used as reference books for my subject by my students. And when they come up to me with questions, instead of supplying ready-made answers to them, I should be able to tell them that go and hunt for so-and-so book in the library, and in that book you will find your answer. And then I should be able to ask the child on the next day that, did you find it? Did you go and find the book and all that? So not giving ready-made answers, but having an array of resources with us. Do we know about the greatest websites regarding our subject? Do we know about the greatest YouTube channels regarding our subject? Do we know about the great speakers regarding our subject? These are all the things which we should have as a resource bank of a good teacher, and we should be able to pick out whatever is required at that time, at that moment for the children, and present it in front of them. And as the last point suggests, our readiness to study a new subject. So I had the great opportunity of learning from a great teacher in Jnanaprabodhini, and his name was Vamanrao Abhyankar. And when I was working under the guidance of Vamanrao, he always used to give us a project as teachers for an entire year. So every teacher in the school for every year would study something new in her domain or his domain, and learning that something new would keep our brains ticking, and therefore we could keep the students' brains ticking because we were very close to the process of learning ourselves. So that is what made our Vijnanamaya Kosh develop. What can we do as teachers? Of course, the first thing, as I've just said, an annual project. We are always on the other side and we give projects to students, but are we ready to take up some projects by ourselves? And nowadays there are many competitions for teachers projects also, where teachers can build good teaching aids, use technology in innovative methods, and then great experimental projects or innovative ideas are awarded by different institutions. So as a teacher, am I open to such innovation, and do I participate in such competitions? Do I do action research in my subject, in my teaching, in my activities, or whatever I feel? So do I want to probe deeper into what I'm doing? I remember a teacher a few years back in our school had done a project in which she studied an activity which goes on in our school, and after studying that activity and giving a lot of survey questions to the students, she exactly pointed out where the lacuna in the implementation of that activity goes. And she said that there is a certain point in the process of that activity where we need to have more dialogue with the students. And what we expect from them is not reaching them properly, is not being communicated to the students properly. So because of her research, we could trace that lacuna and we could work on it, and we could have more effective implementation of that activity. So such kind of action research, such kind of new experimentation do we do. Of course, reading a lot of books. I had a professor in my MA college days, and he used to always tell that at least 30 pages every day. That is the minimum. That is the lowest expectation he had from us. He used to say that minimum 30 pages of reading everyone should do every day. And that was what he was saying for literature students. So if you are a teacher, then maybe the bar will be raised a little high. So let us all question ourselves that do we read round about 30 pages per day, or where do we set our limit? What kind of target do we set for our daily reading? Participation in different lectures and seminars, not only as listeners or as audience, but also as presenters or speakers. Do we prepare small topics and go to present in different places where we participate in different lectures and seminars? There are different groups of subjects or subject associations of teachers where a lot of exchange of thought goes on. Do I take every opportunity available in that group and present whatever I am doing with my subject and try to understand more from other teachers? The discussion in the staff room, which would be an interesting thought. What do we discuss in the staff room? So a very interesting experiment was done a few years ago by a school head of Prabodhini, and he had installed CCTV cameras and secretly placed some recorders in the staff room, and the teachers were not aware of it, and all the conversation going on between the teachers was recorded, and then it was analyzed. And how much percentage of time do we spend in meaningless chatting? How much percentage of time do we spend in emotional exchanges with each other, and how much do we spend in real discussion about the experiments which we had in the class, or our students and our observations about our students, or our plans about our school? So meaningful discussion, in short. And I will not disclose any numbers, but it was found that the amount of meaningful discussion which goes in the staff room was alarmingly less. So let us ask a question to ourselves, that what do we discuss in the staff room when we are in the company of our colleagues? Do we discuss general matters, just trivial talks, or do we have discussions about serious issues in our school or our future plans related to our students and related to our teaching? In Gurukul, the school which Prashant sir just mentioned, the experimental school which we have in Prabodhini, we used to have a practice that every 3 years, every teacher should go out for a study tour. And the study tour was not very easy because you had to go on the study tour alone. It was an individual study tour. So the rigor of studying had to be even stronger. And after every 3 years, so one might wonder why after every 3 years? Because after every 3 years, that refill of knowledge and experiences was required for every teacher, presumably. And that is why after every 3 years, teachers were asked to go on a study tour somewhere out of their own place, of the premises of their school. So either they visited some other school, or they visited some other state or some other institution, traveling here and there and having fresh experiences, which led to more and more knowledge and better intellectual abilities, which is Vijnanamay Kosh. So as teachers, how much of our time do we invest in our own studies, in our own reading, in our own action research, in our meaningful, fruitful discussions in the staff room? And are we open to the idea of going on a study tour individually, or maybe in small groups? If individually is a bit too much, then in small groups, are we open to go for study tours once every 3 years or every 4 years? What do you think about that? Because that will lead to the development of a strong Vijnanamay Kosh. And to the last level of our personality, which is also mostly missing in most of the Western theories of personality, which we read in psychology books or in education books. That is the Anandamay Kosh, or the experience of bliss, or the spiritual side of our personality. So to experience the spiritual side of our personality, we should ask ourselves these questions: that what level of readiness do I have for physical labor? So one might ask a question that how is physical labor related to Anandamaya Kosha, or related to spiritual bliss? So the answer is quite clear that it is not about physical labor, it is about my readiness for physical labor. So do I consider some kind of work as mean or menial, and do I consider as some different kinds of work as high or fit for me or something like that? Or am I ready to take up any kind of physical labor in the school premises or anywhere in my life? So that readiness for sheer physical hard work is one indicator of good spiritual development, and it's really something to think about. Do I forget myself completely when I teach? Because even for that one moment when we forget ourselves, we experience a very, very rare kind of bliss, which is like an experience of being one with the subject, or an experience of being one with the class, which elevates us spiritually, which expands the scope of our identity, of our personality. And the more of such experiences you have, the more spiritual development you experience. So when I teach in a class, what goes in my mind? Am I stressed with the thought that how I'm going to complete the portion, or am I very, very stressfully controlling all the discussion going on in the class? Or do I have the burden of class control? Or have I risen above all this, and have I really achieved that fine level of skill where I can forget everything going on around? I can forget that the period has ended. I can forget that I've been speaking for so long and it has exhausted my body also, and I can really be lost for even a few moments, if possible, in teaching a certain subject, or just in the act of teaching. So forgetting yourself in doing the work which you love is what is an experience of bliss, and is an indicator of a strong Anandamaya Kosh. Do we do service to others? So as we go to the higher levels, the questions are more and more difficult. And when we do service to others, if ever, what feeling do we have in our mind? Do we feel that I'm expressing sympathy towards them, or they are needy and I'm the one helping them because they are needy? Or I'm the one who is elevated at a higher level and they are at a lower level, and as if I'm doing a favor to them. And these may not be the exact words in which we think about somebody, but subconsciously do I feel all this about someone when I do service to them? Or do I do service to people, if at all, if I do service to people, do I do it just because I should? Absolutely, it is my duty of doing service to others. Is that the feeling with which I work? So it's a difficult question to ask ourselves, because it's a very thin line between sympathy and service, or kindness and service. And when you cross that line, you never know. You have to be extremely observant of your state of mind. But for a few moments in our life, whenever we cross that line, and whenever we feel an emotion of oneness with the people whom we are trying to serve, be it the old people in our own family, the young children probably in our family or out of our family, be it the people who are caught up in disasters like the latest flood situation which is happening in Maharashtra in many places, or anyone who is really needing my help. If I go out and do some service, do I feel oneness with that person even for a single moment? Then that is a state of bliss experienced in small snippets, and that is what is an indicator of a good developed Anandamaya Kosh. How do I think about teaching? Do I consider teaching is my job, or do I consider teaching is something which I do for exchange of my payment and that's all? Or do I think that my job is to teach these 4 or 5 textbooks to this bunch of students, and between 9 to 5, and at 5 o'clock, I just pick up my purse and walk away home? Or do I think that I have taken up teaching because it's a noble profession? It is something which gives me the chance to touch the lives of my students in a very, very special manner and to impact them so deeply in such an impressionable age that I'm going to leave a permanent mark on their personalities when they grow up. And through my being, through my company, and through my behavior is what deep influences will be left on their personalities as they grow up. It will shape them as good men or women, great adults in future. So directly or indirectly, or not indirectly, of course, directly, I'm shaping the future generation of my country. And through that, I'm contributing a bit by bit, whatever is possible for me towards the development of my country. I'm trying to create a spirit amongst my students which is indomitable, a spirit which makes them unbeatable individuals, a spirit which makes them really strong, well-founded persons, which makes them great thinkers, which makes them sensitive persons, which makes them great leaders, which makes them great decision makers, great policy makers, and above all, which makes them great, humble human beings. So am I leaving such kind of imprints on the minds of my students that lead to such personalities? And then therefore, do I feel that I am an agent of society? I'm doing some great job, and it is my great fortune that I have been given this opportunity to do the job of a teacher. And do I look at teaching as a noble profession? Because if you do, then it is an indicator of a strong Anandamay Kosh. And in order to have a great Anandamay Kosh, of course, development of Anandamay Kosh, what should we do or what can we do? A few things written on the slide are that cleaning the staff room and cleaning the school premises every day. There are many schools in India where there is no peon or there is no servant as such in the school, and the teachers and the students together clean the school, decorate the school, or in many places even build up different things for their school together. And that feeling of oneness with the school or with the premises of the school, do I feel that? Because that feeling of oneness is the indicator of good Anandamay Kosh. Do I participate in disaster relief activities? I've seen so many teachers in our school, and I'm very fortunate about having such colleagues, that whenever there is any disaster in any corner of the country, they feel that they feel an urge in their mind to respond in some way or the other. So, and not just give an emotional or verbal response, but to give a response through an action. And they want to travel to that place, they want to collect donations for the disaster relief funds of that place, or they want to actually help the people over there to come out of the disaster, to come out of the calamity. And we have been having such disaster relief activities for many, many decades now in Prabodhini. So as teachers, do we feel really restless when some kind of disaster happens in the country? And do we feel that we ought to do something about it? That is an indicator of a good spiritual aspect of personality. Participation in service of any kind. There are so many teachers who devote one Sunday of their month to go to a certain place and work for children of the deprived classes of the society, or maybe the old age homes in your city. And doing such things really shapes their personality in a very, very different way, which is a great role model for the students. So participation in any of such kind of service. And lastly, reading or listening about the saints of India. Whenever we listen to the stories of our saints, or whenever we read or chant the compositions made by our saints, we are directly in contact with the thoughts that lead us to greater levels of existence. So Anandamay Kosh is all about expanding my identity. What do you think? What do I think of me? Do I think I am just me, my personality and my body? Or do I think I am my team? Or do I think I means my school? Or do I think I means my whole country? So what is my level of existence? What is my level of daily existence? That is what is Anandamay Kosh all about. And these different 5 facets of personality, the body, the vital elements of our body, the mind, the intellect, and the spirit ultimately together shape up our entire personality according to the Panchakosh philosophy. And they take us to a thought which says that Kaya hi Pandhari Atmaha Vithala Nandato Kevala Panduranga. It is a line written by Santa Eknath Maharaj, a very famous saint in Maharashtra. And through these lines, he's trying to tell us that as if my body is a place of pilgrimage, it is a place of worship, and the spirit residing inside it is God himself. And therefore, I need to think of my own personality as a tool. I am not here to experience the greatest pleasures of life or to engage in some joy for my own sake. I am here to be a means to something which is greater than me, which is something beyond me. And that is the shaping of the next generation and thereby shaping the future of my country. So do we look at ourselves as tools, and do we look at ourselves as agencies of betterment of the society of the future? Because if we look at ourselves as tools, then we will feel the motivation to make ourselves better and better tools day by day. So the philosophy of Panchakosh, the 5 sheets of personality, appeals to us. It tells us that as teachers, we should work every day, bit by bit, towards the betterment of our personality, towards taking baby steps towards improvement of our entire persona, and making ourselves as better tools towards national development. So I will stop my speech over here, and let us open up for a few questions or responses from all of you. I would appeal to all of you, if you like to share any of your experience or some anecdotes about great teachers that you have seen who match with the description that I just shared with all of you. Let us hear about that, or any questions if you have. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently. So in our school, we have this special activity where we encourage our students to have a silent dialogue or an imaginary dialogue with some objects or personalities that are not actually present, not actually speaking to them. So how does it go? So the first step is that we ask the children, what is your favorite thing around you? What is your favorite belonging that you have? And then maybe there are children who have their favorite toy or their favorite doll or their favorite game at home or their favorite book. And whatever is their favorite object in their life, which they hold very close to their heart, then we ask them to talk to that thing. So they try to talk to that thing in their own imagination. And then if I'm talking to a doll, suppose, then I will say something to the doll and I'll imagine that the doll is replying to me. And then what would the doll say? And then what would I say again? And then what would the doll say? So I imagine the entire dialogue and then I write it down on a piece of paper. So this is how it goes. So when we take our students out for monsoon trips, they love the monsoon trips, and the treks or such visits, outdoor activities are always the favorite of all the school children. And then we encourage them to talk to the waterfall which they see, or talk to the fort which we are visiting in Maharashtra, or probably talk to the little bird which is singing, and the sound of that bird you can hear in the forest as you are trying to climb a fort. So we encourage the children to talk to a cloud, for example, in the sky, to the farmer who is working very hard in the paddy fields around, and then what probably will the farmer talk back to you? Try to write an imaginary dialogue like this. So we leave the children silently in the surrounding to observe and to feel the surroundings. So for 10-15 minutes, everyone goes absolutely silent and people try to catch what is happening around and what is happening in their mind. And then they come back to school and write down 1 page or 2 pages or sometimes even longer imaginary dialogues. And this is when they notice the nuances of the other thing or person with whom they are talking, with whom they are having an imaginary conversation, and they really empathize with things. And they also articulate very well. Their expression skills also develop. So this is a tool to understand emotions better and to express emotions better and to have greater levels of empathy that we do, silent dialogue. Second question, can Shubhankar please read out the second question for me? I've lost it in the chat.
Yes. Is it possible to build on the other koshas effectively for one who has not experienced bliss? Is it step by step or development of all these koshas happen parallelly? It's asked by Ritvik Chakravarti, sir.
Okay. I would not claim to be a person fit to answer this very truly speaking, but within my limited area of knowledge, I will try to answer. My opinion, personal opinion, is that it is possible to build on other koshas and then steadily move towards experiencing bliss. Because we all do not experience bliss at one time, or it is not something you are born with or not born with. You can definitely travel towards it. And as you are saying in the question itself, a step-by-step development of all these koshas happens parallelly. So if you have a good body, then strong body, high fitness levels, high energy levels, then automatically you are confident. You have openness of mind, you have better breathing, you have better control over all your performance and skills in your class. So all these things are related. These koshas should not be looked at as watertight compartments of personality, but they are intertwined and they definitely influence each other to a great deal. So when I work on my physical development or my vital development or my emotional development, definitely I'm building on it and moving a step by step closer towards the development of the spiritual aspect of my personality. So my personal opinion is that yes, we go on towards experiencing bliss, one tiny step at a time, but definitely we do move towards it. And if you are traveling in the right direction, you can experience bliss in small pieces here and there as you tread through your daily life also.
Yeah, Madhurati, thank you for a wonderful presentation. It was really very, very inspiring. So my question is, you said that the teachers, to develop their Vijnanamaya Kosh, they have to experiment in their teaching.
Yes.
Sometimes when we experiment, it is not always successful. So
Yes.
how do you handle failures in the experiments of teaching? Because it is so much related to students, parents, management. So how do you face them after the experiment does not work?
Yes. First and foremost, I would like to say that just by experimenting, we are opening new horizons of knowledge for our own self and for our students. So that is already one step towards development of Vijnanamaya Kosh. And then as we experiment, if we take good care of involving the management and the parents in our experiment, like having a good dialogue with them prior to the experiment, or if it's a long experiment, then during the experiment also having intermittent dialogue with the parents, passing little messages to the parents that I'm doing so and so sort of an experiment and it is going in this direction and I'm happy, or the response is less and I'm not very happy, or whatever. And having repeated communication with the management, with your seniors, the leaders of your school will make everyone involved in the entire process. And of course, in spite of doing all this, if it fails, they need to just pick ourselves up from wherever we have failed and dust away and move ahead, because failure comes to everyone. It is going to happen in life, how much ever we try to avoid it. So we failed, but we failed very graciously. We failed, but we failed at something which is great, which we really tried out with good intention. And therefore we learn from the failure, we pick up the lessons which we get from it, we incorporate it into our teaching, and we move on. That's all what I can say.
I want to ask you that are the development of these koshas are permanent? Once the student or teacher reformed, we have to do something for it lifetime, or it is okay with this?
No, we have to do it lifetime. It is not permanent. You can always digress from the level you have reached, and the simplest example is physical development. Maybe that will be the easiest to understand, that if I do a lot of physical exercise and build up my muscles and my energy levels to a certain extent, does it mean that a lifelong guarantee for my fitness is there with me now? No, it does not. I will have to keep doing it for my entire life. The same applies to all the koshas, that I have to work at building them my entire life. And therefore, looking at my own selves, introspecting every day, therefore, a little bit of upasana, what we say in Jnana Prabodhini, or prayer every day, to question yourself about which aspect of your personality are you neglecting, and are you working strong enough on it. It is a lifelong process. There is no holiday or no finishing.
We have to implement for our students also, na? Then students
yes,
also.
we have to. Yes, we have to implement for our students, definitely.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Yes, Reena ma'am, you had unmuted, so you can ask your question. Reena Adhikari, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I want to ask you that if any of my colleagues who doesn't want to work in a group, so how I will promote him, how I will convince him to work in a group, or how will I encourage him, and how will I able to lift his Anandmay Kosh or Pranamay Kosh?
Oh, that is a difficult question. The answer will be situation specific, or it will be subjective. It will change from person to person. There are different techniques you can use, and it depends on who that person is, how he or she is, how is your relationship with that person, how is the situation, what kind of cooperation do you expect at that point. It will matter on that. One thing I would like to say, that showing your readiness to help and open exchange of thoughts from your side, open sharing of emotions and thoughts from your side will keep a connect open between you and that other teacher. It will keep a stream of communication going between you and that teacher. It cannot happen that one fine day, all of a sudden, you wake up and collaborate with each other and everything is fine. That won't happen. So you will have to build the communication over a few months and keep it going, and then expect that the other person responds or opens up to help you or collaborate with you on a certain project. So we have to look at it as a long-term process, and it depends, changes from person to person, what techniques you need to use and how much you need to wait also.
I had a thought. If I as a individual feel in the intellect segment, there are certain things that I need to do a little more. I need to just a second. I'll just start my video. As a person, if I feel in the Vijnana Kosh जो भागा है, there is an area where I can do a little more improvement in myself. Then how does one go about it?
simple tips which I shared on the slides as well, that if we want to build on our Vijnanamay Kosh, it basically refers to the intellectual aspect of our personality. So more and more reading, so that the intake of thoughts that you have into your brain is good, more diversified and so on. And more listening to good lectures, good speakers, the latest, most updated kind of research going on in the world regarding my subject or any subject for that matter. And then after receiving all that, better practice at processing everything which you have received, so that it should lead to better decision making, it should lead to better planning, it should lead to better expression of your thoughts, it should lead to more creativity. So all these are different faculties of the intellect that we need to build on. And it will of course happen through practice. So what we generally tell the students and teachers in our school is that you pick up one thing which you will do consistently over a year, and we call that as sankalpa. So have one sankalpa for every year. So every teacher in our school decides something at the beginning of every year. For example, as I said a few minutes back, that reading 30 pages of new content every day, that could be my sankalpa. Or watching one TED talk on any topic on YouTube every day could be my sankalpa as a teacher. Or writing one thought which comes into my mind every day into a diary, that could be my sankalpa. Anything like that. So picking up some one point and deciding to work on it for 1 year and then building on it slowly, step by step. That is where we can start.
Yes, thank you, Manisha ma'am. So I think we'll conclude here today's session. So first of all, I would like to thank Madhura Tai for taking out her time and delivering a wonderful speech.